Okay, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to share some ideas with you. And today we are going to try to share like a methodology. In a simple way, we are going to try to start with behaviors, with malicious behaviors, and try to define deception strategy to try to engage the adversary, not our users, but let's try to play a game with the adversary to do something to improve our detection strategies, our detection methods. In a defensive way, we are going to try to apply cyber deception. We are Fede and Diego. We are part of Base for Security company, a service provider company, and we are in charge of services and the initiatives of innovation and research there. And for the last year, we were developing some stages, some tools, some this methodology, some trainings, and some services around deception. And we want to share something with you. You can learn, you can get more information about us on internet. But let's try to start.
Yeah, we always want to share with the people that the stuff that we maybe is a formal research, maybe it's the tools, or maybe our informal research and different kind of conferences, etc., like in a workshop, in a talk, or whatever. So that's why we present this kind of stuff here. The last 3 years we were working a lot with deception. We fell in love with cyber deception, and we hope you will do too. So for starting, we want to know how familiar are you with these 3 topics. That's just one poll for all the half an hour, so no worry about that.
Because we want to know something about you, something about the topic, and because it's not easy for everyone to get to this topic, and we want to know something about you. Let's just take a minute to answer the poll, and
if you are able to scan the QR.
Just 3 questions about, okay, what about cyber deception?
That's it. How familiar are you with these 3 topics? Just for us to gauge the audience and to...
Everybody loves MITRE attack, great. Very familiar.
Great.
Not familiar. An expert, some experts, great.
Great.
Okay.
That's good.
Great. What else?
Next one.
What about honeypots? Are you familiar with the idea of honeypots? Of course, everybody already know what is a honeypot, but what about deployment? What about using the honeypot? What about something else? Not only honeypot, honeynets. Okay, very familiar, some of you. Okay.
Like it.
It's a good starting point.
Okay.
And what about cyber deception? It's the same? Maybe yes, maybe not. Okay, after this session, we are going to compare the answers.
If you're an expert on cyber deception, maybe this talk is not for you, but
great.
Let's get to it.
Or maybe yes, you can add some value after this.
That's it. Okay, perfect. So this is our audience. It's very important for us to understand how to explain and say things and avoid unusual things. So
let's start with some basics. Just a little moment just to talk about the perspective, not only the topic, because maybe you already know what is a TTP, what is deception, but we want to engage with this perspective. Deception is about, in this case, we are talking about deception as something to deploy in our environments to improve detection, improve the security, do something in a proactive way, not only just to wait, just put some rules and just wait. Let's do something else to try to engage, trying to mimic or do something with real stuff, real objects in the environment, and let's try to not only just wait, let's do something in a proactive way. And this is not something new. We tend to say that we import almost everything from another world, maybe a military war. In this case, the art of war talks a lot about deception. This is not new. And some years ago, MITRE Engage deployed a really good, like not only some ideas of deception, but how to apply it, how to deploy it. And there is a great handbook to start with this topic. We are basing our method in this
framework
document.
Yep.
What about TTPs? We already know that if there is a method, an opportunity, and a motivation, there is a thread, and this thread is going to do something with the environments, and then we are going to try to analyze these things and try to extract ideas. These ideas is one of the things that we are going to use to deploy our strategies, our defense, our threat hunting, our detection strategies, our CM rules, what we want to deploy in our environments. This is something that we do it a lot, and Mitre attack is going to work with this. And this is really important. This is when we understand that there is people there is maybe a cyber criminal company there that is trying to do something with our environment, and there are some bias there. We are going to try to attack those bias. We already listened a great talk, a great keynote about bias. Okay, we are going to try to engage with those bias, social and individual bias from the adversaries. And let's try to do something with this. This is just some examples about how to combine different tools, different configurations in the environment. This is like an example. It's not only about deploying a honeypot there, a server that wants to be real, but it's not. It's about a combination of elements. And there are some great examples of how to do that in a combined way. It's like a deception layers or deception architecture, not only about, okay, let's deploy this server and open it on internet and that's all. Let's try to do something in a more complex way.
That's it. Okay, so we faced two extreme cases when we approach the companies and the organizations to say, hey, let's do some deception, let's do some deception strategy, etc. And there's two extremes. In one extreme, you have the small company. We came from Latin America, so in Latin America, there's companies that cannot even afford the antivirus license. This is for real. And in the other extreme, you have a big company, huge company with very complex environments. And for them, the problem is the complexity. Of course, it's not the money or the budget. So between these two extremes, there's all of the examples. So that's why we need a methodology. There's not one size fits all, okay, of course, but we try to understand what are the real problems in this specific organization to help them create the best strategy for them. It's not scalable for any other company, maybe.
So any problem in cybersecurity, this is not a technology problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem that needs to be related with an environment, with context, with what about the business behind. It's not about deploying the technology and that's all. We need to try to engage with these deception strategies as a complex environment.
So we started with this question, of what are the minimum, what is the minimum amount of these decisions and steps and whatever we need to make to really start a deception strategy. So there's hundreds of different decisions and a lot of steps, etc. We try to make a very, very minimalistic approach for avoiding any excuse on doing that. I cannot do it because that, okay, I have an answer for you, and we tried this with this methodology. So for the first step, let's start like extracting the behaviors of the attackers, of the people we are trying to model.
It's not always the same. We talk a lot about TTPs, about IOCs, what about them? We need to try to understand what is behind every behavior, what is behind every IOC, every IP address that is interacting with us. What about the tools? What about the executables? What about the logins? What about all those elements are different, and we can deal with those in a deception strategy in a different way. This is why this is our starting point. We are going to start with those elements, and we need to try to get those elements. This step is almost the same as a threat hunting process. We need to have a defined step, like a path in terms of how the attacker is trying to deal with us, with our environments. Let's move on.
Okay.
And where are we going to find those elements? It's about, there are different sources. The main source is our own environment. The attackers, the adversary, the people who want to attack us, it's interacting with us. And there we are going to find great information, but those information, it's shared, and we can get information from other parts. And when this information is already established, we start sharing reports and information from companies, from governments, agencies that we are going to use a lot to try to do something with this information. This is our starting point. This is the first step of 4 stages for this methodology. When we already have this information, we are going to try to select. Let's pick some of those information. Let's pick the priority of this information. And let's move on to the deception method, the deception strategy. Before starting with choosing, OK, I want to deploy this honeypot, this server, this honeypot, this. No. Let's start with some criteria, some definitions that need to be defined before deploying anything on the environment. These criteria.
So we start by doing some basic steps. Until here, we assume that we solved the last part, the cyber threat intelligence, etc. We understand our enemy, our attacker, etc., or our adversary, call it the name that you want. So we need to understand our goal. Let's say we need to detect or learn. Maybe both, but at least detect or learn. We need to understand if the environment will be isolated from our network, our productive environment, or will be integrated. Is much more complex, of course. And we need to understand our basic rules of engagement. That's how does success look like for us? So it's different for any of the companies. And what is look like the failure and the limits of the boundaries of the strategy and the operation. So the idea is how many people will know about the operation. Yeah. Well, so the rules of engagement are a ton of rules, but with these 3 we can move forward. So with this 3 steps, like the green one, if we design this, we can go to the next step. And the next, of course, we already know our threat.
But this is really important because we are talking about adding complexity to the environment. We want to add things to the environment that are only used to detect. And in some way that it's different than the traditional way. It's not about just putting an IDS in the environment or a firewall with some capabilities. We want to add elements. We want to add configurations, add users that are not real, add DNS registries, add some elements that are there, and they are adding more complexity. And this is something that it's bad in some way, because we know that complexity is related to security in a bad way, and we want the simplest environment, but here we are adding some complex elements in some way.
Yeah, so this idea is a kind of a paradox, because cyber deception is proposed the idea of increasing cybersecurity, increasing security by adding complexity. That's a paradox. If you add complexity, it's more difficult to make security, and it's all a mess. So the non-technical people of the C-level of the organization will say to you, okay, what if the adversary came into the environment and distribute malware? A lot of cases that can arise in the company from the risk perspective, because we are not trying to see this from a technical perspective. Of course, it's a risk for the environment to have a mixed, integrated environment with some fake elements and decoy elements and some real elements. It's not so easy. But we understand about the risk. So you can like lower the risk by taking the right decision or the good decision, right? So, but we understand that it's a matter of risk. It's not a technical problem, because a lot of C-level or managers, directors that are really looking for the risk, the problems of the company, the money, etc. They don't care a word about cyber deception, cybersecurity, firewalls, IDS, honeypot, etc. They care about money and goals in the company. So that's why we need to understand their perspective, right? So, release.
Okay.
Next step. Next step is maybe the hardcore of the idea of the presentation, because we need to make a kind of translation, a kind of a mapping between this MITRE TTPs or wherever you start from with the CTI elements, and convert that into activities for cyber deception.
Okay, what we are going to deploy, it's the question that we have. But I have a question for you. What can you see here? If you see this picture, what is the first idea that it appears, it arises?
Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah. It could be something like, oh, it's a great punch. Now, there is an attack. But if you are looking in terms of the attack, it's because you are not really experienced in box or in a fight. Mm-hmm. There is an opportunity. And this opportunity is what we are going to look for. Every attack, it has a vulnerability. It has an opportunity to do something with this situation. Let's try to move to the technological world. In terms of this idea, this translation, MITRE Engage has a great reference of this. You have a technique. It could be a MITRE attack technique defined or not. And with this technique, you need to try to see with a lot of patience and with a lot of context about what is happening there, and try to understand what is the vulnerability, not mine vulnerability, the vulnerability of the adversary there. Maybe they are using our resources, they are using our applications, they are using something that is in our control. Remember, here we are not talking about hackback. We are talking about the cyber deception in our own environment. Let's try to do something with these vulnerabilities. Every attack, every technique has a vulnerability. Maybe we can do something with this, or maybe not, because we are breaking the law. But we want to define this like path. Here you can see some examples. Every TTP we can extract interaction with us. For example, on the credential dumping, typical technique, it's not working. Okay, it's working. There, the adversaries are interacting with us, with our operating systems. We can put something there, and what we are going to put there. Maybe we can just put a user that it's not real. Maybe we can modify some exe files to just wait for the attacker to interact with those exe files. Maybe if they are trying to use RDP services, maybe we can add some of those ports in our own servers, but with a NAT rule in another LAN, in another network, not in the same network. Let's try to understand the behavior and how we can work with this behavior to do something to protect us. There is a thin line between detection and just detection and applying deception. It's okay, because this line is not well defined in some case. For example, you can say, oh, if somebody use this script or this kind of parameter, let's trigger an alert. Okay, this is a detection strategy, a detection rule. Okay, how we can do something different in terms of deception? Maybe we can change the answer of this parameter to appear to be working or not working, and we are going to win time. With this time, we can do something. We can try to respond to this activity. Let's move on.
Okay. So we start with the activities, and we need to think of this second column. That is the kind of, we use the same word, but it's slightly different, the vulnerability of the attacker. That is, you use a technique, and while you use a technique, there's something that you are showing about you as an attacker. So we start to add in like ambiguity. If you are an attacker and you find something in the network, let's say a file with some content, maybe that content, you assume to be the content to be real, to be true, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's there just for you to find it. So you start adding ambiguity or misleading, right? And this came from the classic theory of cyber deception. This is not from cybersecurity. We stole a lot of things from classic deception from the war and the military side, etc. So we have like three kind of activities, like expose, affect, or elicit, where we extract the information from the attacker activities. And this one is the matrix engage, the matrix. That the matrix, you have a lot of ideas on how to, in the expose, affect, or elicit activities. So you have different ways of extracting, and where you can map your TTPs, what are those specific behaviors, and what would you do to make use of them. Maybe you have one file, we have like 3 files. So the attacker needs to take the 3 files, analyze the 3 files, understand, is that true? Is the 3 of them are true, or they are not true, etc.
This is not going to say how to do that.
Yeah.
Just the perspective, just the main topic, and then you need to define what kind of technology you can use in your own environment. Maybe you are dealing with some application with an agent, AI agent deployed, and you want to protect that AI agent. Okay, where you are going to find an opportunity to deploy deception there. Maybe you can modify something in terms of modifying the software, in terms of modifying the trained, maybe some parameters, or the trained database, or something that is just there waiting for the attacker to interact with. Or maybe you have another kind of environment. We already have the TTPs, the context, the vulnerability, the goals, the adversary. Let's move to the juicy elements. Here it's where you start being very happy, because it's when you can deploy, install, and do something with your environment. And we split the elements in some kind of categories to understand how we can connect each element. It's not always about honeypots or honey nets. It's about using elements in a different way, in just waiting for the interaction, just modifying the perspective of the adversary. Remember, it's there. There is people there making decisions with our information. Let's put something in the middle to mislead or other ambiguity. Here you have some examples. Those are just examples. It depends on your technology. Maybe you can add in your own VPN or zero trust platform to access some configuration that it's not real. It's just there, just waiting for somebody that don't know what is real to interact with, and that's all. You can go deeper in those elements to understand how to deploy this in your own environment. But these elements need to be related to the goals, to the risks, to what about the interaction. We want to deploy this system, this service in our own environment, or in a remote desktop, in a remote server, in another cloud environment. You need to define those rules to start working with.
Yeah, some basic ideas for the last years of research on cyber deception are trying to demonstrate that the solely idea of an environment with cyber deception applied is a kind of pushing back the attackers or the adversary to do something on that environment. So that's good, because if the attacker knows that we are doing deception on our environment, that's good for our security. So that's the first like psychological and behavioral analysis of that, the papers from the last 4 or 5 years.
We want them to waste time. It's our main goal in some way. Okay, just to start, okay, how we can start with this? You can start with environments or with scenarios that could be zero risk in some way. Just not deploying services on production, deploying services, deploying honeypots. No, let's start with something simple, with something that could be non-risky, like some configurations in your own environment. You already trust in your single sign-on platform. Let's add a configuration there that it's without any permission, just waiting for an interaction, and let's capture this interaction in our CM, and let's trigger an alarm. Okay, there you are making like a deception activity applied. Needs to be connected to the first part. And for the last stage, we are going to try to define a story. Because remember, the adversary, it's looking to that stories. It's trying to understand what is the most important thing in your environment.
Yeah, and we think that this is one of the most underrated topics in cybersecurity is storytelling. Because we are more technical people in cybersecurity, but the storytelling is very important, especially in cyber deception, that the attacker needs to believe in your story. So you need to create a whole narrative and for them to understand not the picture, but many pictures that are being like going one day and that day, the other week and the other months, and maybe from 1 year to the other. So there's a whole coherent narrative, right? So that's why the deception strategy may not be based on maybe one like port 22 and this is SSH on Windows and that's it. And that could be whether a love story or a never-ending story, as we say. But there's very important. You need to put a lot of effort on the story that you need to create for the attacker to believe that not today but tomorrow or the following year, right? And there's a lot of elements. Of course, you have your deception element, let's say your fake API or your token, API token or whatever that it will be used. But you have your metric, your guides, your context, and the first one, of course, is the trap. But the rest of them, you need to understand and create the story based on all of these elements.
There are just some examples, like some code snippets there in a developer machine to just being there waiting for some person or some attacker, cyber criminal trying to use it and trying to get this information. But maybe it's just information. It's just a report, just there waiting with a breadcrumb saying, okay, they are in this cloud environment, it's something interesting, it's something in a dev environment, and this is the password, and that's all. There is no reason to make a doubt around this element. And you can start to imagine all these stories because we are defining like, okay, this makes sense because it's very integrated with the environment, with the people there, with the roles, with the person, with the names. And it's your time to do something. Yeah, because everything is great, but your next steps, let's try to, in the short term, trying to define, okay, what kind of scenarios are near to me to define these deception strategies, and why. Maybe the why it's because we want to improve our deception strategy, our detection strategies. But let's start with something with zero risks. There are a lot of opportunity to do it almost for free. You only need to spend time, and in the long term, it's all about improvements. It's all about lessons learned for every deception operation and try to improve it and improve it again and do it something better the next time.
Yeah, and you will deploy, you will make like operations in cycles. Maybe for the first one, it takes maybe 1, 2, 3 months, and then another 3 months and another 6 months, and maybe the whole operation will be like 2 years in cycles of 3 months. And maybe that's good for your organization. Maybe for another organization, the first step is a whole year project, and that's it. That's okay, that's fine. The idea is to fit to your organization with the deception strategy.
Depends on your starting point. You can get you can get a lot of information about communities, about all different research papers about the topic, about how to deploy, for example, the MTD strategies, movement target deployment, and how to do something in real environments. And there are a lot of opportunities to do something.
Yeah, we are trying to share this information for the people to really get into deception and try deception, because there's the academic side and the industry side, and people who are doing like open source tools, and the community is really growing, and it would be amazing. But for now, it's the companies are very like not so willing to implement or make.
Yeah, or maybe they are just deploying tools because some vendors are having great tools to deploy and manage. I don't know, a lot of decoys, a lot of honeypots, but it's not enough. You need to try to interact every tool between. Strategy between your own business, your own environment.
Yeah, that's why this presentation is not so technical. We are technical people, we love technical stuff, but we already have in the industry some amazing tools and brands and vendors that are selling cyber deception, like you right-click, deploy this, and that's it. But that's the technical part. That's not the whole picture. The whole picture is you need to make a strategy that is aligned with your organizational strategy, cybersecurity strategy, and the organizational policy as a whole, and then you start like digging in. So it's not so simple, but it's expensive maybe for if you are like using these kind of big technologies, but you can also do it with like little things like fake users and fake files and fake APIs, and that's it, and organize all of them into a cyber deception strategy.
It's really important to remember.
Yeah, please remember.
All warfare is based on deception.
This guy really got to a bank with an avocado grenade.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. If you want to be part of a research, there's an anonymous form to you to fill with some questions to be asked. And that's it. And thank you very much.
Any questions? Ideas to share? Yeah. There is a path in the middle. For example, when you are in a place that say, okay, we are recording you, there is a video about in this place. It's about getting information that you are doing that. You need to define this. There is no a unique answer for this. Sometimes for example, some tools can allow you to open all the ports there, and if there is some kind of scan in your environment, it's going to say that everything is responding. Some companies really don't prefer to use this method. We think that if you are saying that you are using deception, the other part is going to know that, and it's going to spend more time, but sometimes you prefer to don't say that you are using deception and keep it simple, keep it in a small way.
Yeah, it's a matter of your own strategy, because maybe you want to make a deterrent strategy by saying the attacker that is being watched, like the camera, or maybe not. It's about your own strategy. So that's pretty much it. And you need to create like realistic environments. So if you put a lot of stuff, maybe it's not so realistic. Maybe it's too ambiguous. So it's a matter of your specific environment, and a mix is good, but the lesser the better. If you have good information from a few sources, it's better than if you have a lot of information to analyze from millions of sources. So that's it. We are on time. Thank you very much, and see you then.